Good morning, Minnesota DFLers, and welcome to the DFL Daily. Richard Carlbaum here, chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. We're here every day at 10:45, giving you the message, the action, and the tools to take one more concrete step toward winning big in the 2026 midterm election this November. Before we get into today's topic, let's talk about some upcoming events. There are a lot of good ones. Tonight at 5 p.m., we've got an SD 62 field trip knock to Shakopee. Minneapolis electeds and their volunteers are heading down to knock doors for Brad Tabke. At 5:30 p.m., there's a neighborhood ice cream social in Andover. At 6 p.m., head to St. Paul for the Working Families Picnic with DFL Senate District 53. At 6:30 p.m., there's also a Working Families ice cream picnic down in Waseca. Looking ahead to tomorrow at 5 p.m., head down to Chatfield for the Rural Rally for Democracy, part of a weekly series that's happening. I also want to just point out that this last Saturday at the State Central Committee, you all helped us gather more than 700 pounds of food that we got to donate to the local food shelf. That's really important because food shelf visits are up 250% because of Republican decisions that continue to drive grocery prices up. It's getting harder and harder for families to afford groceries. And so DFLers showed up in Waconia, a district that's represented by Senator Julia Coleman, who's abandoned her constituents when it comes to cost of living issues. And of course, Tom Emmer, who is leading the effort to support Donald Trump's war of choice in Iran that is driving up gas prices every single day. So DFLers showed up in community. We didn't look down. We looked to one another, and we looked to our fellow Minnesotans in Waconia, and we said, "We got you. Let us help you. Let us help stock your food shelf, so that the visits can be a little bit easier this next week for the families who need them." All right. All of the events can always be found at dfl.org/events. And let's get into today's topic. We're doing another round of Q&A today, and this is one of my favorites because you all send real on-the-ground questions. The stuff you're actually running into at your doors, your county fair booths, and your own local units. As always, anything is fair game. Send your questions in and we'll work through them. Joining me today to field questions is our digital director, Connor Wicklund. Thanks again, Connor, for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's get into it. This first question I picked out because it comes off the heels of new tariffs being announced by the Trump administration. But we had a questioner ask, how can we link rising grocery prices to more than just tariffs?
Yeah, 50% tariff on Canada we woke up to, right? Tariffs get a lot of attention, but they're really only one part of the story. Another issue is what this administration has done inside the USDA itself. Take eggs, for example. Back in early 2025, DOJ went in and gutted staff at USDA, including people working directly with the bird flu response. Egg prices were already running high as the outbreak spread, and instead of surging resources to fight it, this administration fired the very people whose job it was to contain it. They ended up scrambling to rehire staff after officials raised alarms that the cuts were undermining efforts to track the outbreak, with staff and funding cuts affecting the labs that test for bird flu in the first place. That's a self-inflicted wound that showed up on every family's grocery bill. Egg prices are more stable now, but how they handled that crisis comes up again and again. And now we're watching it all happen with beef. This same administration cut funding and staffing for animal disease control and prevention programs at USDA, including for New World screwworm. Now a flesh-eating parasite that had been kept out of the U.S. for decades is back in Texas, and ranchers are now dealing with new surveillance and labor costs. The USDA is projecting beef and veal prices to rise over 12% this year, and that's before accounting for how far the screwworm outbreak spreads. So when people ask why their grocery bill keeps climbing, tariffs are one piece. But the bigger pattern within this administration that gutted the very agencies meant to protect our food supply, and now families are paying the price for it. Eggs, beef, vegetables, it's all the same story. In addition, the war of choice in Iran also drives up grocery prices. All those groceries that get trucked into local grocery stores, all those trucks have to pay the higher diesel costs. And so those higher diesel costs actually directly impact grocery prices as well. When we move our goods around this country, diesel is the main fuel that's driving a lot of that shipment. And the massive increases in diesel fuel prices because of the war of choice in Iran also is driving up your food costs. All right, next up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Gas just hit over $4 per gallon and diesel remains at over $5 per gallon, and that wasn't the case before the war in Iran. Next up is a question we've been getting a lot. What is the DFL's position on data centers that could strain the grid, raise everyone's electric bills, and use a lot of clean water, especially when this is being built in support of crypto, sports betting, and prediction markets?
Yeah, this is a real good question, a very real concern. We hear it everywhere. I was in Rochester, or I was in Mankato last night for a listening session, and data centers was a hot topic. In fact, the city council in Mankato just considered a data center moratorium this last week. And so it's top of mind for folks. So I want to start by first saying that at the state convention this year in Rochester, that's why I mentioned Rochester earlier, we actually passed a couple of things at the state convention. So one, from the platform committee, I want to say, quote, data center regulations supports a strong regulatory framework for data centers, including comprehensive environmental review, water and energy projections, local government authority, public transparency requirements, and safeguards ensuring infrastructure and utility costs are not shifted onto Minnesota taxpayers, ratepayers, excuse me, or natural resources. And then proposal number 12, data center moratorium, supports a moratorium on new hyperscale data center construction and permitting until after a comprehensive statutory framework is in place to ensure that Minnesotans' energy, water, fiscal resources, communities, and democratic processes are protected before any such facilities may proceed. So from a technical standpoint, when you ask where does the party stand, that's the language you can use from a technological standpoint. But I do want to point out there's actually what's already happened this last session at the Capitol. Democrats passed a nation-leading law that requires data centers to pay for their own incremental electricity costs, the substations, the transmission upgrades, all of it. So those costs can't get quietly shifted onto your monthly bill. And then this session, DFLers like Patty Acom and Jennifer McEwen pushed for further restrictions and bills requiring public disclosure of how much water and electricity these facilities actually use, fees that fund conservation, and in Senator McEwen's case, a proposed pause on new permits until the state has real data on the impact. Obviously, this is an ongoing conversation within our party. There are some differences within our party. I want to acknowledge that. To a lot of our friends in the trades, the construction jobs generated by new data center construction is really, really important to their members. And so they do advocate for new data center construction. They, of course, want safeguards put in place, the same kind of safeguards that are now in our party documents they're in support of. But they do want to see Minnesota move toward being a state that can provide those safeguards and also do some of this data center construction. The bottom line for the doors, if a company wants to build here, it's got to pay its own way, and it's honest about its footprint on the front end. That's the message that works with Democrats and plenty of Republicans in rural Minnesota too. This will continue to be a hot button issue. We should study it. We should be very cautious. We shouldn't just throw open the doors and allow data centers everywhere. We should be doing our due diligence and making sure that we're protecting the environment, our water supply, our electricity grid, and other aspects as well.
All right, this next question is for anyone getting ready for county fair season. What are the best practices for engagement at county fairs? Our DFL booth is going to be set up near the Republican booth.
Okay, so first of all, I hope that the response to you will be enthusiastic and people are going to be excited. I like to give high fives quite a bit at county fairs. I like to ask people where they live in the county or where they're coming from. I think engaging people and like, how are you doing? You know, our coordinated campaign script at the doors right now doesn't start with like a pitch for our candidate. It simply says, I'm here to check in with you and see how you're doing. It really is giving people a grounding moment where they understand that we care for them as a human being. If we can, team, can we throw up the postcard that we created? We created these postcards this year. Sometimes we send out posters to county fair booths, but this year we created this new postcard. We gave them away at the State Central Committee to your local units. I hope folks picked them up. If you need some, please reach out to Tim Wagner on our team. Tim's on the call today, and I'll have Tim put his email in the chat. If you need us to ship some to your local unit, I'm sure we have more. We can do that. I'm very excited about these. Do we have the backside or not? The backside actually has a set of 6 very specific issues that we know based on data are coming up at the doors most often. And so that's really important to remember. Like most of the people you're going to talk to at your county fair, they're going to have about 6 issues in mind. It's going to be cost of living. It's going to be healthcare costs. It's going to be linked to their concerns about fraud. There are a set of issues that we feel like our elected officials and candidates can talk about on a regular basis. And so I hope you can get one of these postcards at your county fair booth. They're very cool, and they're I think going to meet the moment. Thank you for hosting your booth in the first place and giving us a presence at your county fair. Staff your booth with people who are warm and genuinely curious, not people looking for a debate. We don't need to debate people, right? Ask a lot of questions. Lead with a question, not a pitch. Something like, what's one thing on your mind today? What's one thing that would make life easier for your family right now? Just simply, how are you doing? How are you doing right now? And then actually listen. You'll learn more about what's working in your messaging than you will from any script that we give you. Having something simple for people to do is also fun. They can be a quick voter registration check, maybe a raffle, a volunteer sign-up sheet with a QR code. People always love those raffles or bean polls. Low-friction ways to capture a name in email are worth more than a long conversation with one person. And then finally, on the Republican booth specifically, if someone comes by trying to start something, just stay friendly. Kill them with kindness. The people walking by and watching how you handle it will remember that you were calm, you were the decent one, and that matters more than winning an argument with someone who is already against us. Don't plan to get into an argument. Greet them with a smile, thank them for stopping by, and just, be a listener. Have fun. And I'm glad that you're going to be there. All right, last one, Connor.
Great. Last one. This is an important one. We had someone write in and ask, what can we do to address the hurtful comments in local unit group chats or Discord channels? And how should we handle DFL volunteers using those channels to attack each other?
I appreciate this question. I want to be direct. Attacking other members of the party in party spaces is not acceptable. Full stop. We are in the fight for our lives against Republicans who are trying to make life harder for Minnesotans, who have given up everything to Donald Trump and his authoritarian regime. We cannot afford to be spending that energy attacking each other. Big groups can inherently get messy. When we started DFL Amplify, we shut it down for our feedback channel after it grew past a certain size. Things got heated, and it turned away folks who were new to the party when the first thing they saw was insulting language. That was our mistake for not shutting that channel down sooner, and we own that. If your local unit chair or officer running one of these chats, you're allowed to set norms and enforce them. Keep chats small. A simple posted reminder. This is a space for organizing, not for personal attacks on fellow Democrats. This will solve a lot of it before it starts. If it continues after that, it's appropriate to remove people from the space for repeated serious conduct to shut down the chat entirely. Folks, we have to treat each other with kindness, and we have to understand, even if we disagree on one of the candidates running in a certain race, whether it be local or statewide, we agree on 95% of what we need to do. And 100% of us has to be committed to stopping Donald Trump and Republicans and the harm they're causing Minnesotans. That's why I'm in this fight. And I want you in this fight as well. And I need you to be a leader in our community. Here at the DFL, we have our culture statement, which says that we all have a responsibility for creating a safe, welcoming, secure environment for people to fully participate in the Democratic Party. And if you see somebody violating that organizational culture principle, you should say something, because they probably are doing it because they got away with it before and nobody's asked them to stop. Just ask them kindly to stop. We need to focus on stopping Donald Trump and the Republicans who want to take Minnesota in the same direction as the corrupt and fraudulent federal government Donald Trump is leading now. All right. I'm a little fired up about that one.
That's great. That's all the questions I got for today. Folks in the call, please keep sending them in. I'll drop the submission form in chat and we'll run it back next week.
All right, real quickly, here's our action for today or tomorrow's events. If any of today's or tomorrow's events are near you, the field trip to Shakopee, the picnics, the rural rally for democracy in Chatfield, go to dfl.org/events, RSVP, and bring someone with you who hasn't been to one of these events before. Every one of these events is also a chance to recruit someone new into this work. Folks, we got like 24, 28 days until the August 11 primary. I'm not tracking exactly, but it's coming up. I already early voted. If you've not early voted, please do so. You can do so at your local county elections office. And if you want, on Friday, we're having an expanded early vote. That's when early voting in person and putting your ballot directly into the counter begins this Friday. So make sure that you make a plan to vote vote for Peggy Flanagan for U.S. Senate, Matt Little for Congress and CD2, Trina Swanson for Congress and CD8. Let's get our candidates through to the general election. And then 105 days from now, let's elect them to Congress so that we can flip Congress, ultimately keep a Democrat in the U.S. Senate seat and Peggy Flanagan, and we will win big up and down the ticket November 3rd, 2026. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:45. 105 days. Let's go win this thing.